The danger of falling in cold water doesn't end the moment that you get back on your canoe or kayak. The fact that you're still wet and exposed to the weather means that hypothermia is still a risk. In this video, I'm going to help you find what you need in order to safely fish and paddle in cold water. Oh, and by the way, my name's Ben. I'm a paddlehead. So yesterday I spoke with Zack, the owner of Frontenac Outfitters, which is a small paddle shop here in South Frontenac, Ontario, and I asked him what I needed in order to safely paddle and fish in cold water. And he said something about cold water immersion protection, which sounds like super technical. Here are the two options that he suggested. I want to go fishing in the cold weather, and I want to fish until December. Yeah.
Having a PFD and you know, immersion protection, whether it's a wetsuit or dry suit, is going to be your best bet.
What would you say is the advantage of a wetsuit or a dry suit?
Advantages of a dry suit is you can layer appropriately underneath of it, wearing, you know, wool, synthetic materials. I would still avoid cotton and those types of things, because as you sweat underneath the dry suit, you'll still get damp and you'll get chilly underneath. So wearing, you know, appropriate insulating layers underneath the dry suit is going to keep you warm. If, you know, you get wet or you fall in, that dry suit will not let the water penetrate to the inside, getting your underlayers wet, so that you know, you're still going to be able to insulate and stay warm. A wetsuit, on the other hand, so this is like a Farmer John style, you know, full legs around the core. They're good. I find them not as comfortable though. You wear them basically next to your skin, so they can feel kind of just gross a little bit after a while, especially if you're not, you know, in the water actively. A big portion of what a wetsuit does is it traps a small layer of water between the suit and yourself. Your body warms up that thin layer of water, and that helps, again, add some insulation and some warmth. So wetsuit advantage, they're inexpensive comparatively to a dry suit, but I think long-term, a dry suit is just an overall better investment for comfort, especially for longer periods on the water. Both are pretty easy to repair, aqua seal patch kits, that type of thing.
So this is a dry suit.
So this is your typical dry suit. This is a very bare bones one. This would be one I think would be ideal for kayak fishing or canoeing. So there's no skirt attachment. So in a whitewater kayak or in a sea kayak, we generally will wear a skirt, and it'll have like what we call a double tunnel. So that skirt will go up inside. By removing that function, it's a good way to save some money. These ones here also have what's called a comfort neck, as opposed to a latex gasket around the neck. So that's another feature I'd probably look for if you're, you know, strictly looking for a suit for fishing. Mainly because the latex neck gaskets are really tight. They can be a little off-putting, you know, especially if you've never worn one before, because they do fit so tight, and really designed to keep the, you know, 99.9% of the water out of the suit. Whereas this guy here, if you do end up in the water, you might get a small trickle of water down the neck, but once your head's above the water, this is going to fit tight enough to keep a majority of the water from out of the suit.
So if you fall in while you're wearing that, it's going to be kind of like nice. You're not going to get shocked by any cold water or anything, right? And you'll stay. No,
not so much. I mean, it's still an experience for sure, depending on the water temperature. It may take a minute to adjust. You know, that cold water hitting your head and neck can certainly cause some reflexes to start firing. But you know, if you're geared appropriately underneath, you're not going to have that full cold water shock like if you just jumped in a bathing suit.
With a wetsuit, you're going to fall in. You're going to feel that initial cold shock.
Yeah.
But then you're going to warm that water up.
That water will warm up. I mean, you'll feel the water kind of creeping in through the feet and like obviously in the armpits. Generally, we'll wear like a paddling top over top of this, but it's not in any way going to keep that water from getting in here. So you will feel that cold rush of water as it kind of gets in there, and it will slowly start to warm up a little bit. There's going to be different degrees of neoprene as far as the thickness goes. They can get quite thick. Biggest problem being though is you start to lose mobility as you start to thicken the insulation on a wetsuit. So generally 3 mil is kind of the sweet spot for still having good mobility and still, you know, maintaining warmth. And this would be suitable, you know, into water temperatures down to, you know, probably about 5-10 degrees in that range. It's going to be cold, but you know, again, it'll buy you some time before hypothermia becomes a real risk.
Cool. Well, thanks. So here's my breakdown of it. I've worn both. I've done a 19-day whitewater rafting trip through the Grand Canyon, and during that trip we had to wear a dry suit the entire time. So I kind of started to get used to wearing a dry suit, but they're still uncomfortable, especially with the normal gasket. Have you ever fished out of a wetsuit or a dry suit? Share your experience below and let us know what you prefer. So it seems like the ultimate solution is a dry suit with a comfort neck, just so you can have all day comfort while fishing. But the obvious issue with that is that it's expensive. Not everybody can afford $1,000, $1,500 for a decent dry suit. So it seems like the next best option would be neoprenes, but it has its downfalls. Sure, it's less expensive, but it'll only keep you warm if you're constantly wet, and it's kind of uncomfortable to wear all day long. So it's really best used in the spring if you're gonna use it. And if you're using it in the fall, it's kind of just one-time use, just keeps you warm enough to get you safely out of there. So it's far better than having nothing. If you're finding this video helpful at all or enjoying it whatsoever, hit that like button. We'd really appreciate that. So ultimately, it's up to you and your budget. What level of risk are you willing to take? What level of discomfort are you willing to deal with? And what can you really afford? Okay, so you have an idea of how to keep your core warm. What about your hands? You're gonna have to keep them warm and dry. Check out the video that's linked in the description below, or it's popping up right there to see what my solution is for this season and how it's treating me. Anyway, so we'll catch you later.